Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Black Nerd Fridays. And this one here, like I said, we're continuing with the Christmas theme for this month. Your girl, KinkySudz, cosplay queen on a budget. As you can see, I've got the little ornaments in my hair. Um, we are continuing on with another Christmas episode here. And I gotta say, I got my co-host. You see, I did plural co-host, Mr. Refine himself. How are you today?
I am good. I am good. We're missing somebody right now. I wonder who that could be.
Somebody. I don't know who that
Hmm.
could be. I
Hmm.
wonder. But I
Yeah.
will say the one thing that we aren't missing is the nerdiness. Again, we continue to talk about all things nerdy, whether it's written, animated, or live action. And we also don't forget beer. But I went a little bit different. So I'm going to hold off on my little drink because Mr. Refined here was saying that he has a very fancy drink for today. And so I really would like to know what is that drink that you've got today?
Delirium Noel. If
Ooh.
you
No,
know,
you
you
didn't want the
know.
pink elephant.
Yes. If you know, you know. This is one of my favorite joints. It is 10%. The joint drinks like I don't know. It's excellent. That's all I'm gonna tell you. It's excellent. I get it once a year. I normally try to save a bottle for the next year, but this one right here is what I'm looking to open. It is a
Ooh.
Belgian
Ooh.
strong dark ale. If y'all know
Nice.
y'all Belgians, that's where it's at. So I can't
And
wait
I
to
think
open it up. Matter of fact,
and it, I was gonna say, and it looks like you got on a Star Wars
yes, I
Christmas
do.
sweater. Am I seeing that right? Because that's my boy, Darth Vader. Just saying, I absolutely love. Oh yes, I thought it was.
You already
Oh, that's
know.
nice. That's nice. Yeah, I didn't. My Christmas stuff didn't come in on time, which kind of sucks. But that's okay. That's quite all right because I made my own drink this time. See this lovely thing? Let me go ahead and get full screen on this. You see this bad boy? So I'm calling this Beaches and Poles. Reason being is because I put a little bit of cane sugar on the rim to give the appearance of a little bit of sand. Because I'm out here in California, so we don't have snow. And then the drink itself is made with pineapple, watermelon, and a little bit of rum. So I think this little tropical drink is going to be great. I had a little bit of it earlier, and I was like trying not to drink it all down earlier because I was really tempted because this is like really tasty. But I like it. First time making a little drink. I will try to redo this a little bit to make it look a little bit better. Try and take some pictures with it, but I'm like,
Hmm.
I think this should be
Listen,
good. It
just go
smells
for it.
amazing. Reminds me of when I was in the Caribbean when I went on my cruise a couple years ago. So,
Just go for it. If you drink it up, so be it.
mm,
Cheers.
mm, cheers. So, oh man, that is so good. That is so good. And the sugar afterwards, yeah. I'm going to tell you this much. If you're not big on sweets, I would not make that. I know a few people who are like, I don't like sweet drinks. I think that is delicious. I could also see that being made into like somewhat of a margarita where it's more of a slush.
Hmm.
That would be absolutely delicious. But I want to give a shout out to Brick because he just said cheers. So cheers to you, Brick. Always,
Cheers, Brick.
always being with us every single episode.
Facts.
Like I said, today we are continuing on the theme of Christmas. And this time we went with a comic by the name of Santa Claus Private Eye. And I really went with this one because, when you think about Santa Claus, we only think of him for one time of the year. And there's all this speculation about what does Santa do for the other 364 days of the year. Well, this comic that was written by Jeremy Bernstein goes about trying to answer that question. And I think this was pretty interesting because they presented Santa Claus as a private eye, someone who tries to investigate murders and other crimes that happen in the city. Now, I don't think they actually stated what city, but I'm assuming it might be New York, but I'm not entirely sure. It gave off the vibes of that, right? But I really wanted to go with the title, He Knows When You've Been Naughty, because he's really looking at the underbelly of the city. And I just thought that this was really cool because it just adds another layer to Santa Claus that we typically don't think about. We just think of him as a fat, jolly white guy who comes in to your house and gives you presents and is kind of weirdly checking out to see if you've been naughty or nice for the year. But we had a
Hmm.
little debate about this on internally in our team about whether or not we believed in Santa Claus. And as a kid, I always thought that was weird. I mean, a stranger coming to your house to give you presents and he knows what you've been doing, that's a little strange. Especially being a black kid and you see it's a white guy coming to your house. To me, it just seemed kind of weird. Just say it.
Yeah.
That was just me, right? But I don't like to ruin it for kids, so I kind of just go along with it, even when I was younger. But I never believed in Santa Claus. But I know you said you did for a little bit, right? Until
Yeah, up until I
you
was
saw
8 years old. Up
your
until I was
uncle playing
8.
with your toy, right?
Yep, my uncle. I woke up in the middle of the night. My uncle's playing one of my toys, and I'm like, "Oh, okay. I see how we move in here." So that's how I put two and two together. I even seen some gifts under the tree that weren't wrapped. I'm like, "Okay, so if my mom ain't wrapping,
He
or
got
if
he
Santa's
got
not
lazy,
wrapping them,
right? He
then it
got
has to be
lazy.
my parents." Say that again.
He said Santa Claus got lazy. He was like, "Yeah, you got
Yeah,
it."
he got lazy as hell. So I'm like, if Santa ain't wrapping these joints, then something ain't right here. So like I said, once I caught my uncle playing around with one of my toys, I'm like, yeah, it's over. He was playing with my stuffed Raphael to be exact. And this
See,
this Raphael was probably like 2.5 feet tall. It was a pretty big one. Matter of fact, it was about 3 feet. It was about 3 feet tall,
dang.
real stuffed and stuff. And I just seen him playing with it. And then my mom actually had took a picture of him playing with it. So I'm like, all right, y'all done slipped up. Now I know what it is now. So
You know what I'm saying? It's like the parents forgot. They're like, "Oh yeah, that's right." They're like,
yeah,
"Ah, he's old enough. He can figure it out."
yeah.
So with that being said, we do the custom, our custom. What is the good, the bad, and the ugly? And I think that really we should start off with the good. With it's the two of us, so this part shouldn't take as long since D Beer Talk Now isn't here. So go ahead, Mr. Refine. You kick us off with what's your good.
First off, shout shout out to D for being, late right now, but he gonna be here. But anyways, first off, this was a very, very interesting story. The artwork in here was dope, just all around. And I really, really appreciate it when you think of Santa Claus, like you say, you think of just one night. This guy had 364 days to do whatever else he had to do in this time. And to find out that he has kind of another, I'm gonna say, moonlighting gig that he's doing in between time. That right there was dope within itself, and the fact that he was investigating something pretty bad just made it all the better. And to be honest with you, I physically and I mentally put myself in a space where I was like, I wonder if he would do that. And if you understand what he's doing, once we get into the story, he's a private eye. You
Hmm.
realize that he's pretty much going to figure out or solve the crime anyways, because again, he knows if you're naughty or nice. So I just thought it was a very well put together story. I love it. I believe there's more than one part to this.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and I'd love to read more, to be honest with you, because it ended well, had some twists and turns, but dope story, great artwork, great way to show me another life that Santa leads besides just dropping shit down my chimney every year.
Exactly, right? Exactly. Like you see in my picture, he's dunking it right into the chimney. So I tell you this much, man. When I first came across it, because I was like, okay, what Christmas stuff can I do? I didn't want to do sappy Christmas movies because that's just not me. And, I didn't want to do anything that was, kind of very cliche. And I came across this very, just by accident, where it was like, well, trying to find other things related to Christmas. And I just thought it was really interesting that they're trying to put him in as a private eye. And then I thought, it makes sense, like he has all the time in the world. He's able to read people and he knows he has resources to find out about you. So why wouldn't he be a good private eye? Um, what I liked about it too was just the style was very noir. It came off with this really dark theme. It kind of reminded me of like when you're watching some of those old crime movies and they had that certain sound to it. It's very edgy. It's a lot of dark. They did it really good with the lighting and the drawing in here to really play off this idea of like, of course, being in the office of a private eye. The shades are somewhat open and the lights creeping in, and I really liked how they really played up on that, and everything was kind of like in the shadows. You're looking at people very differently. They pulled in a few other Christmas characters as well, in a very different light, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But I just thought it was really interesting how, they tried to add this different element to Santa, and not just this, good old jolly character, that he really was troubled with some things that had happened. It really changed his perspective on things. So I really love that part about it. I thought that that was just a really nice story of how they did that, and I think the artwork was great. And like you said, I definitely would read the next parts that come into it. I am curious how they would pick it up, though, especially how they ended it.
Hmm.
So it would be interesting to see how they pick it up, but no spoilers because I'm not going to spoil this one. I don't want to spoil this one. But with that, what would you say was your bad for this comic?
All right, my bad would be, so you're looking at Santa Claus being a private eye. As you said, you're getting kind of John Cagney vibes. He's a private eye, he's a
Yes.
detective pretty much. Why would they not have any people of color here. I didn't see one person in there. Maybe I'm going crazy, but I didn't like that at all. Again, you talk about Santa, he delivers gifts to everybody in one night. But if he's investigating crimes, then it means that he should be in our neighborhood as well. And to only see him in just the white people's neighborhoods kind of, had me upset a little bit. But at the same time, I understand it is what it is. You know how they portray things in comics and just to the world, to the media, that everything is white face and this is how it should be. But the reality is we are in that storyline as well. We are part of that history. So Santa should have been in the hood too. So that's my bad
Listen,
on it.
listen, I will agree with you. There was a lack of representation and diversity in it, but I'm glad it
Hmm.
wasn't solely showing just crime in
Right.
black neighborhoods. You know how they like to play that up in media, right?
Oh
I
yeah.
think honestly, I had to agree. The lack of diversity is definitely a bad for me. I think the other thing too is just too short. I
Yep.
feel like
Yep.
they, and I think they did this on purpose just to see if it would even work or not, right? But I do feel like the story could have been baked a little bit more. But I do think it was pretty good that it was short and sweet. So if you're looking for something quick to read, this is perfect. But I do think you start to get into the characters a little bit more, and I would love if they did a little bit more explanations to why certain characters were the way that they were. They really focus on Santa, which makes sense because it is about him. But there were other characters I was just like, man, it would have been nice to know a little bit more about them, like just a
Hmm.
tiny bit more. And that kind
Hmm.
of flows into my ugly. My ugly is the fact that how they portrayed Miss Claus, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but I was like, again, you think about marriages and how people are together for so long, they went that route a little bit. And I was a little taken aback by that. I think mostly because of how they portray women as they get older. But I do think that we'll talk about it in greater detail later. But that was my ugly. I really didn't like how they did Mrs. Claus. I was like, you know what? That's messed up. That's really messed up. But what
Yeah.
about you? What was your ugly?
My ugly was watching them pretty much depict what happens when I look at rich white people specifically. They show that aspect where something happened, and I don't want to give spoilers, but something happens and you understand why this happens later on whenever all the pieces come together. That was my ugly. It was realistic to me. It was honest and truthful, but at the same time, just thinking about that aspect, it's pretty dark, it's dirty, and it's something that happens a lot in society. And I feel like, they show this in soap operas and stuff where certain things
Yeah.
happen in there. And when they're doing that sort of thing, it's not like they're trying to be false about it. There's a lot of truth to that. So this perfectly displayed and portrayed that exact characteristic and flaw that you see in, white people that have money when it comes to an inheritance or a will
Mm,
or life insurance, etc. So I,
yeah.
I thought that they hit the nail on the head, but it was what it was.
I know, right? Like I was like, dang, it kind of, really played into the ugly parts of how humanity is, right? So,
Mhm.
before we get into that, I was curious for you when you were reading through this comic, did this remind you of any movies or any feels from any movies or books or characters? Because we talked about it a little bit about how it has this noir feel to it, but did it remind you of any type of movie? Because it sure did for me, just a wee bit.
I didn't really get nothing. I could say more like Home Alone because of some of the
Mm.
things that were happening to him as far as being surprised, but not really. I didn't get like a specific movie. I can even go with um kind of like Friday After Next too, just some of the goofy shit that was going on, but I didn't really say per se there was one movie that it reminded me of because there's a
Really?
lot of different elements in there. The only vibe I really got was that old school detective sort of thing, John Cagney sort of stuff, but not any specific Christmas movies. That's just me. I might have missed that.
See, I didn't get any Christmas movies, but it did remind me a lot of Sin City. Like it reminded me a
Okay.
lot of Sin City.
Okay.
That
I
was the
could
thing
see
that
that.
really got me. Sin City, and with that, of course, with color. And it also reminded me of this other movie that what's his name was in. Russell Crowe was in a long time ago called um, what you call it? L.A. Confidential. It's that old school, really like 40s, 50 type of feel where there's like crime. There's a lot of like issues that are going on, but it has that old school detective feel where he's kind of
Hmm.
dressed in a trench coat, he's got the hat, and that's kind of what it reminded me of a little bit. Was just like Sin City, but set in the old times, and then a little bit of that LA Confidential, which to me I like that era, but I think again you always see those type of eras being less representation, which makes sense because during that time, I mean, did you see black people really having a major role and stuff? Not really. Let's be real, right? And even now, I still feel like the way that we're being represented, and like this is why I said for this comic, I'm happy to see they didn't play on that trope of, you know, um, of any like high crime in black neighborhoods because I was
Yeah,
just like, please don't go that route, please don't go that
yeah.
route, and I'm glad they didn't. But like you said, it's like, damn, we can't even be in a
Can't get
private
any
eye. We
representation.
can't
Right. Like,
be,
come on.
you couldn't
No
agree where the
representation.
character's black. I mean, come on, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But they didn't want to do that, which is kind of sad. But maybe who knows? Maybe in the other volumes of this, they might do that maybe a little bit. But now, one of the things that Santa kept saying in this comic that I thought was really interesting is that people are motivated by two things. They only ever do anything for two reasons, right? And that was love and money. And to me, I thought it was really interesting because throughout the comic, he kept saying this over and over again. He kept showing throughout like different characters who were doing this. But I want to say, I have my feelings on that. But I think if you think about this as far as just like human nature, do you think that these are the only two motivators? What you
No,
think, Mr.
definitely
Fine?
not. Considering what we know the twist at the end, I'm not going to give a spoiler on that, but we know the twist at the end. For myself, I look at responsibility as involved in it also. I have a family, I got kids, I have a wife, so I have a responsibility and a duty to take care of them in certain ways. So loving and money is not my only motivation. Now, me loving them would be a part of that motivation, but it's my responsibility involved inherently under that. So responsibility is a big thing for me. The love is definitely that's just off top. But responsibility, absolutely, that's the other motivator for me. Specifically, when you're talking about priorities that you need to take care of, when it comes to having someone else that relies and depends on you, and it got portrayed later on in here, so we'll talk about that later on.
Oh yeah, I honestly, I mean, when you think about it, a part of me kind of agrees with him just a little bit, just a tweet
Hmm.
bit, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because, like you said at the end, what happened, I do think that it still falls under one of these. For
Right.
majority of the book, the comic, he was being motivated by money, and he kept saying this money. Hey, I'm short this month, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. I'm like a dude who brings gifts to people every year, brings joy to everyone. You telling me you short? How are you going to be short? That made no sense to me, right? Like it didn't make any sense. So but he was motivated by that. He's like, yeah, if I get this money, I can make it. That'll hold me over. And I do think when you look at just people in general and in our reality, right? I
Hmm.
do think that we are now starting to go down this route. It's either it's going to be money or love related. I mean, because you get motivated to go and get up and go to work. Why? Because you want to make money. You want to go and get this nice car. You want to do all these things. But again, you're going to be motivated by what? By money. Money is going to get you those things that you're looking for. And I think the other thing too with social media, we're getting pushed to the point of, well, I need to be, you know, I need to have money or I need love. I can't be by myself. I got to have kids. I got to do all these things. I do think that we are getting to that point where it is starting to come down to just two basic things. I really feel that way. And I kind of was like, I can understand why he felt a little jaded throughout that whole comic because I was just like,
Yeah,
no, I
I
think
want
I think we are getting to that point. I
I
think
want
we
to
are.
add in on that. Like when you
Yeah,
were
go ahead.
speaking specifically about social media aspect, yeah, you talking about money is the factor, but also people want to be recognized for something. So let's say, for example, you got money. Yeah,
Yeah.
you have money, but you still want that recognition for
Yeah.
having whatever it is you have, whether it be, oh, I got the newest game, I have the newest sneakers, I have the best car. Yes, you need money to do that sort of stuff. But at the same time, people want the recognition. That's why we post stuff on social media. That's why we post things on Facebook and we want to be seen in the public eye. So love and money, yeah, motivators, but at the same time, you have other things as well, particularly when you're talking about social media. So I can't just say
Yeah.
it is, you know what I mean, that's simple.
I wish that we could also have peace as a motivator. I think you do as
Ooh.
you get older that gets to be more of a motivator than when you were younger. But I
Mm-hmm.
do think, but by that time you figure it out, it's a little too late, right? Like,
Facts.
it's a little
Facts.
too late at that point, which sucks. So with that, What did you think of this version of Santa? And I'm gonna go first on this one because I thought Santa in this one was very jaded. I felt that he was just like over it because how he came on in the scene, he was just like, "It is what it is. I'm short this month. I know what I need to do." And I just thought it was so funny seeing him in that way because we are so used to seeing him as happy. He's never upset. He treats his elves okay. Right, sure they're working all year, but still, he's doing all right, right? He has his wife that he's in love with, but this one, he was just like he was so over it. He was so over it. I mean, there was a point when he was trying to deliver gifts and he was behind. He was like, "Who cares? We'll still make it." I'm like, Santa Claus, you 30 minutes behind, and you okay with that? You still got 6 billion other people to deliver gifts to, right? So but he was just like so over it. And I just thought it was so interesting to see him in this way where he just was like, you know, I'm good. I'm just gonna do what I need to do. I need to get enough money. But my question was really the money that he needed. Who was it for? Like I want to know, was it to pay his bills at the North Pole? Like what was the what was the reason why he was short? Like who is he? What bills did he have to pay? And his bill should be paid for if he's bringing gifts. But that's
Yeah.
just me. I did think it was pretty interesting how they portrayed him. But Mr. Refine, what's your thoughts on how Santa was portrayed here?
Well, first off, you know why he was trying to get some paper. We all know that. You know what I mean? Once you get to the end of the storyline, you understand why he's trying
Yeah,
to get this bread. But
right.
I thought he was actually definitely was jaded, but I thought he was cool. He had like a little suaveness to him. Very very intellectual, and he also had that kind of like a sixth sense on when he knew something bad was going to go down, except for
True.
that one part when he got his ass whooped. But
Well,
he
hey,
was
hey, he had it coming to him, the guy
he
afterwards. So.
definitely had it coming to him. He was always a step ahead, pretty much of everybody, from what I noticed, based upon how he moved in there. And like I said, this was a side that I never seen in Santa. When you think of Santa, he's always happy, he's always jolly. This dude was a little bit down and out. He was just kind of like you said, it is what it is. He was just kind of going with the flow. Well, I got to do this because I got to pay bills. I got to do this because I need to take care of this person right here. And then the whole fact that him talking to his wife, and when we know his relationship with his wife, normally Mrs. Claus, that's a very good relationship. And this
Yeah.
one, it was kind of like the teachers and the parents on Charlie Brown. It was like wah 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 wah
Mm.
in the background. So I just thought it was crazy as hell. But I did like the Santa. I thought he was cool. Like I said, I thought he held the shit together, and he was smooth guy to me. That's just my
Oh
opinion on
man, let
that.
me tell you, when they did that with his wife, I was
Yeah,
cracking up because I had to make sure I reread that a couple times. I was like, wait, did I read that right?
yeah, you
But
read
you're
that right.
right. But you're right. I mean, the whole thing is like it was just really interesting seeing him in that way. I do think he was pretty cool, but he, like I said, he was just like so over it. He was like, I can't do it. I can't do it
Hmm.
anymore.
Yep.
I couldn't help but laugh at him for that because I was just like, I think the other thing too about Santa with this is just that they kind of touched on why he got to that point because it's just the same thing over and over again, right? Day in and day out. And when you think about just our society as a whole, how when you check the news, right? This is part of the reason why I even took a step away from watching the news as frequently as I used to, because you hear the same stuff over and over again. It's always someone being killed, someone being screwed over, people going to trial and getting off. Like it's just all these things you keep hearing. You hear politics that are at play, capitalism continues to screw people over. You hear about different governments that are again, just not treating their people well. Other countries dabbling into other countries' business. It's just the same thing over and over and over again. And then
COVID, COVID, COVID.
COVID is still running rampant, and we're still
Hmm.
hearing of cases of Black people still being harassed by the cops. We're still dealing with the aftermath of certain trials that are ongoing, ones that are coming up, trials that just ended. I mean, it's a lot that's going on when you think about it. So I can understand why he got to a point where he was just like, I just need to make it through the day. Because I think a lot of us are at that point. And I usually
Yeah.
get to that point by the end of year because it's just such a battle that you're going through throughout the year of like,
Hmm.
it's been enough. I'm
Yeah.
over this.
I could see
It's rough.
that. And that's why I said I wasn't surprised to see him be the way he was, despite that when we think of Santa, we always think of that jolly guy. And to see
Yeah.
this other side was just, it was weird, but at the same time, it was cool. It was refreshing because he is a human being. He has these magical powers, these mythical powers, but he's also human. He can relate to what's really going on in the world. So I thought that was cool. He was grounded. You know what I mean? He was down to earth.
It was grounded, which is really interesting, right? Because like I thought that with Santa, like I said, he really is one of these type of larger than life type of characters, and they really
Hmm.
brought him down to earth in this. I mean, and I think the biggest thing that I was really shocked at is because of how jaded he was, they didn't have him go down the route of being a drunk like they usually
Right.
do with a lot of old detectives, right? They didn't go that route of him being, being at the bar all the time. He's like drinking because you've seen how they portray him, and they
Hell
do the
yeah.
whole like let me,
Yeah. Yeah.
type of thing. Like they didn't have him do that. He wasn't abusive towards anybody, but he was just like, just let me just finish this, get this check, and be done with my day. So I
Yep.
thought that that was pretty interesting how they portrayed him in that way, and they didn't go the alcoholic route, which was nice. But I am curious to see for the next sets volumes that are in this if they're going to go that route with him as an alcoholic or have him kind of challenge the things that are going to happen, especially with how it ended at the end. So,
Yeah. Uh.
mm. but with that, my next question: thoughts on Mrs. Claus? Now
I
you talked about it a little bit. You said how it was like
yeah.
Charlie Brown,
I can
but I
go a little bit
mean,
more in depth on it though.
yeah, I would say, but I mean, like, what did you think about her? Because I got my 2 cents on that.
It made me question what's going on behind scenes, behind closed doors, because we always look at them two as being a happy, loving couple. I remember one of my favorite movies is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the
Mhm,
claymation
mhm.
one with Burl
Yes.
Ives and Bing Crosby
Mhm.
singing and stuff.
Yes.
Well, excuse me, Burl Ives singing. But anyways, you remember the relationship between Mrs. Claus and Santa. And she's like, "Oh, eat up, you eat your food. You got to get fat and stuff like that." But it was a love relationship. There was no hate. It wasn't any disdain. So for us to see that phone call, and his secretary's like, "Oh, Mrs. Claus is on the line." Excuse me. And he's like, he's talking to her, but you hear kind of like the yada yada yada, the Charlie
Yes.
Brown thing, want. What's going on that he has these feelings towards her? And maybe this is what pushed him to do that other thing that he did later on in the storyline. But I really would like to know what's going on here and why they had her in this situation and being portrayed like that. Because it was kind of odd to me. I never seen her like that at all. You always see her the same way you see Santa, very happy and always
Yep.
having his back.
Yeah, I was a little shocked by that. I was like, why did they go that route? I think the other thing too was she came off a little overbearing, don't you think? Like she came off like, like you could tell just from the conversation, it was just like, you need to do this, and I don't know why you're not here, and we got to be back here by tomorrow, and I was like,
That's
man,
his wife. That's her job.
yeah, I
That's what
mean it's
she's
their
supposed to
job to
be
keep
doing.
them on top of things, but man, why you got to come off like you ball busted type of thing?
Yeah,
But
but
that's the
that's
thing that,
what we seeing.
yeah, and I
We
think that
seeing
was,
it.
yeah, I think the other thing too is just when you read the comics, I don't want to give it away. I can
Yeah.
understand why she might be a certain way because when certain things happen in relationships, things kind of change the dynamic, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so when you feel a person kind of pulling away, that can in turn kind of influence the interaction between you two. It can
Mhm.
change what you guys do together. Are you really going to look out for this person? Or are you like, look, I don't want you to get screwed over, but at the same time, you were getting on my nerves, and I think that was how they were trying to go with it a little bit because of what happened. But
Yeah.
I think at the same time, it's just really interesting when you think about the relationship because who knows how old he is. First off, like we don't know how
Mm.
old Santa Claus is really supposed to be, and I think that's probably one of the longest marriages ever. It's probably
Yes.
around.
Yes.
So you're like, after a while, it's like okay, it's the same thing over and over again. We got to work all year to do all this stuff and then what? We get this one big thing, and we never really get a break. Like they don't get a break too much because they got to get right back into it. But
Mhm.
I was thinking about just their relationship dynamic because you had kind of touched on it a little bit, and I was just curious. When you think about your own relationship, because you've been married for quite some time now, like, did any parts of that relationship did they kind of hinted at? Kind of even like you're like, man, I like not that saying your relationship reflects that, but in a sense of you're like, man, I just really don't want to get to that point. Like, have you did you
Yeah.
stop to think about like that type of thing?
Absolutely. I think about that all the time. If I watch it on movies, if I see it on a TV show, I think about like I don't ever want to be that sort of couple. I always make sure that I do the best that I can on my aspect. And if I ever felt that way towards my wife, that's a problem. Like where I'm like, oh, pretty much it was kind of like he's on the phone and he's like, oh, here this bitch go. That's how I felt. You know what I'm saying? I don't ever want to be at that point in my situation. I don't
That's
think
what
I
I
ever
thought
will be
too.
because we just the way we work is different. It's not like there. So, and he was on he when he told Mrs. Barton, he's like, she's like, you've been married. He like, yeah, long enough, and we don't know how long
Boy,
they've
you
been married,
know.
but we're gonna assume 300 years. I don't know. You know what I mean?
More than
So
that, probably.
I don't know,
Yeah.
man. I don't know what's going on. I don't know.
Yeah. Man, I couldn't help but laugh because, like you said, he did come up like, oh, not this woman again. Like, I don't
Yeah.
even want to deal with it. Like that, and that's the thing. Like, I think when you think about relationships, when you get to that point in a relationship, it's like you guys got to go your separate ways before you guys become so bitter. But I think a lot of things that really happens with this, and I think this is what, to me, I'm thinking way deep about the relationship probably more than I should. But I was just thinking along the lines, like, they've been together for so long, finances are tied together. So it's
Mm.
like, how do you separate that, right? Like when you've been together, and then if you got kids, which they have elves in this case, who knows how many elves they got to take care of. But I'm just thinking, like, she's like, look, if I leave, I mean, first off, who is he still going to deliver the presents? Because I can't do that by myself, right? Because like
Right.
he said, she can do everything up to driving the sleigh.
Yep.
And that to me, I thought was a really interesting. I'm like, so why can't she drive the sleigh? Did he not teach her? And
Hmm.
or is it taboo for her to even drive the sleigh? Like, would she have a moment of like, oh, I'm going too fast and like crash that bad boy? 'Cause that could
Yeah.
also happen too. Um, but I just thought it was interesting, man, because I was just like, man, why they gotta portray her in such a way? They didn't even show her. They didn't do
Nothing.
anything. All you heard was womp 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 on the phone. I was like, that is messed up. I
Yep.
like how you
Yep.
said, this bitch is on here. I don't want to deal with it. And it really did come off that way. It really did. I was a little hurt by that. I'm not even gonna lie.
I wasn't hurt. I just was more surprised than anything because always I'm just gonna keep going back to one of my favorite movies for Christmas time.
Yeah.
What would make them want to go so far left? Like what happened? And again, it could have been something that started pushing them apart.
Mm.
We don't know
Well,
what
I
that
mean, we
is.
we kind of got an idea of what that
No,
was.
we know the aspect of what happened at the end. We don't know what happened before that because all
That's
we've
true.
seen is this part where it's want, 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 want. We
But
don't
that
know what
was
happened
6 years
before that.
ago. That was 6 years ago with that incident that happened. So maybe
Yes.
that's when it went south. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe
She don't know about that incident. I have a feeling she
we don't
don't.
know. I mean, see, this is what I'm gonna get at. Men like to think that women don't know, but I feel like, and I shouldn't just say women. I feel like people just think their partners don't know. But if a partner
Mhm.
is really paying attention, and this is something I think is really critical here, it's like if you really are paying attention to your partner, you see the little things that they do that are different, right?
Yeah.
Like they might be trying to pay attention more to their appearance, or their schedule changes a bit, or they're getting into things they typically wouldn't get into, and you're just like, why are you doing it? Or becoming more secretive, right?
Right.
Not more private, like not quiet, but more secretive about things. And I
Mhm.
think that, in that case, she probably was paying attention. She was like, I think she knew. I honestly think
You
she
think
knew. And that's
so?
probably why
Okay.
she was giving him such a hard time. To be completely honest with you, I think she knew.
Woman's intuition.
I think so. And that's why she was scorned. She was making his life a living hell. So
She definitely was, from what
she's
we've
like,
seen at
get out
least.
there and get that check. Take care of these elves. That's what I think. So when we talk about characters, so of course, Mrs. Claus, I was a little surprised by that, but there's another character which I think one of our viewers here had hinted at that really for me surprised the crap out of me. Not
Yeah.
because of, I think it was because of his appearance, but also just what they classified him as, which I was just like, damn, really? Like,
Yeah.
why would you put him in that
Yeah.
category? But who would you say was a character that surprised you the most?
It's two of them. The first one is definitely Jack Frost. Two reasons why. The main one would be because they had him kind of like a peeping Tom sort of person. Also, the dude was, if you watch Shameless, that was Frank Gallagher. You ever watch Shameless?
Oh,
That was Frank
yes.
Gallagher. That's what that was. You look at the artistry and stuff, that
It
was straight up Frank
does. That's
Gallagher.
what I thought.
Yeah, as
Yes.
soon as I seen it, I'm like, yeah, they got Frank Gallagher on here. So yeah, he was
Yes.
able to do things that somebody typically wouldn't do. He had his ways of going around the system and doing X, Y, and Z. So he surprised me. But also Santa did. Actually, I'm gonna say Santa did. But most importantly, Mrs. Barton, the main person that he was
Ooh,
doing the case for, she
really?
surprised me. I mean, she surprised me, but she didn't. But
Yeah.
yeah, it surprised me. I'm gonna say that because I thought that was like a shut and close case at the end. And then when he doubled back, he like, nah, let me go ahead and investigate this. Yeah, my hunch and my gut is right. You know what I'm saying? So it was Mrs.
Yeah,
Barkley. But shout
I
out to
agree
Jack
with.
Frost.
I gotta say Jack Frost really well. I was a little taken aback with him being a peep in Tom, and just the fact of how he was. I was just like, damn, Jack Frost should be cool. You know what I'm saying? Like if you think
Right.
about, what was the movie where they actually portrayed Jack Frost? I'm trying to think of the name of it. What's it
Talking
called?
about Michael
Frost?
Keaton?
No, no, no. It was
Oh,
yeah,
Martin
yeah.
Short. Talking about
Yeah,
Martin
Martin
Short
Short,
in
when they get
Santa
the
Claus.
personification of Jack Frost. That's what I was thinking. And then you got
Yeah.
him coming up as a peep Tom. But then I started thinking, like, wait a minute, that actually could actually make some sense. I'm like, maybe it could actually fall into the character for Jack Frost. That was I was a little taken aback by, it, but I also think it was really interesting. Again, for all the characters, especially the ones that are typically tied to Christmas, besides his right hand man, the elf that was like, "Hey, you need to be on time." That was the only one that
hmm
was kind of colorful. Everybody else associated with Christmas was dark. Did you notice that? Like every
Yes.
other character was
Yes.
like jaded, a bum, overbearing. Like it was just like every other character associated with Christmas was not the jolly persona, and it made me stop and think, like, damn, does that mean that they're putting the front for Christmas? And it's like it's like we get all excited about Christmas, and they're just like, we got to put on this mask. Here we go. And then every other day, the mask comes off, and they're just like, hey, this is what it is. We don't like our job. We don't care. We just want to get by. And I just thought it was pretty interesting how they portrayed Jack Frost in that regard. But at the same time, I also think it was pretty interesting just how they, like I said, everybody else was just so dark. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I think I think
And I'm here.
I
Oh,
think I won the bet.
I was listening to y'all. Y'all didn't even see me. Y'all didn't see my
Oh, I
I
saw
was
you
about
sneak
to start
in.
talking major trash. Like, man, what you
Listen,
talking about? Yeah, it's
Man,
listen. I saw you
we
sneak
already
in, and
been going
I'm
in
gonna
on
say,
you.
listen. I'm gonna say, Mr. Refine. I think I won that bet. So
You
let me
did.
let the viewers in. So and D as well. So D, before you got on, and before we went live, we made this bet. We made a simple little bet. What time did we think D, Beer Talk Now, would come in on the show? Now, Mr. Refine gave you 15 minutes. He's like 10, 15 minutes. I think
nah,
he'll get on. I'm like, nah, he
nah,
gonna come in around that 30
Travis,
mark. So
Travis
where
wasn't no
we at
joke
right
today.
now?
So
Where
let me
we at
not mess
right
it up.
now?
Which
So
which character surprised me the most? Throw it my way. Let me just
yeah,
get
we're
it.
gonna throw it your way. Now you
We're
know
gonna
what?
throw it
I'm
your
about to
way,
go
but
back
we
to some of the
definitely
previous
we about to
questions.
roast your ass.
Yeah, I'm about to go back to some of the previous questions. But go
He
ahead.
got
What
the
characteristics?
Christmas sweater on. And ain't even we supposed to do that the next episode. Talking about he about
Nah,
to
we're doing it
roast
all
me.
month
Nah,
of Christmas,
whole month,
all
baby.
month.
We getting it in.
So we doing this
What
one
beer you
right here.
drinking?
Shout out to Almanac.
Hold on, let me get the full screen. Here
Yeah,
you
shout
go.
out to
Do your full
Almanac
screen.
Brewing Company. Shout out to Phil,
Almanac.
head brewer, the 11.3 Belgian blended Imperial Stout, Asian rye barrels. Let's get it. And then also one of my favorites that I had during our episode coming soon. This beautiful thing right here. This is a Belgian style quad right here, 10.8. So we're about to
Yes.
get it in. So my favorite character, man, Jack Frost. Jack Frost surprised me the most. I love Jack Frost.
Oh yeah.
Come on, Jack Frost, get him. Tell him what it really is.
Frank Gallagher all the way.
Yeah,
Oh man.
Jack Frost was just a character that he was who he was. They didn't attempt to write Jack Frost in some philosophical way or anything like that. Jack Frost literally was like, this is what humanity does, and I just need my next fix. And it was like, literally, like that's what Jack Frost was. I just need my next fix, and Jack Frost got it.
Oh
Dealing with
man.
Santa Claus, which
Wait
I
a minute.
thought it was
Even as a peeping Tom,
he was getting his fix, man. He was again. If you look at Jack Frost being a peeping Tom compared to Santa Claus taking pictures and people out
Hey,
here,
that's
he's
for a
the private
job,
eye.
okay? That was for
yeah,
a job.
okay, that's all right. It's still the same thing. He had to knock on
It
the
was for that
windows.
money. He
You know
had
what I
to
mean?
he had
Come
to
on,
make
man.
rent. He was like,
I'm
I
just
need
trying,
that
yeah,
check.
he wasn't paying. We didn't know what he had to save up for the month. I was like, what you mean you short? As you mentioned earlier.
That's what I said.
Shout out to Jack Frost. Because
All
again, he
right.
wasn't seen that much, but I just love that he did what Santa Claus couldn't do. He went down to the nitty gritty for real, and didn't try to make any two ways about it. So that's my character that surprised me the most.
All right.
How
Well,
about
then
that?
I'm gonna put up the other question for you because we're gonna do rapid fire with you, D.
Let's go ahead.
What are your thoughts on how Mrs. Claus was portrayed?
Oh, she was that teacher like in the what's that Charlie Brown, where it was like I was like, dang, they did the woman scandalous. But if you think about it, even through the whole novel, just what they talked about with marriage, even with the one of the characters, the character who came in and even give Santa Claus the job that the novel focuses on, just the conversation about marriage. So it wasn't a surprise. I mean, Santa Claus really put across that Mrs. Claus could do everything by herself, pretty much.
Except
And
drive the sleigh. She couldn't
except
even
drive the sleigh, but she didn't want to drive the sleigh because she was doing everything else. So he was like, "You just need me there to drive the sleigh." But the relationship, I mean, come on, like he said, being an immortal. If we talking about like that's one thing that we probably can get into too later. But when we talk about lifetime, I'll be laughing because people are like, yeah, your lifetime. Now imagine if that lifetime y'all both woke up tomorrow after y'all both thought y'all was gonna be gone after 50, 60, 70 years, and you was right back at it again.
right back at it again.
Mr. Claus was like, that wasn't working. So Mrs. Claus, shout out to Mrs. Claus, even though they disrespected her with that wah 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 voice.
They disrespected her on so many levels.
But I wanted to know more about Mrs. Claus. I thought you would get some interaction.
No,
with
get
Mrs.
nothing.
Claus, and you got zero. So
we got nothing. And
that was shady, right?
Yeah, they made her so overbearing. That was the thing that I didn't like about it, because I'm like, come on, man, y'all could have added a little bit more character, depth to her, but they didn't do that. They didn't do that at all.
Definitely.
But all right, now I got this other question for you. I'm curious what you think. What do you think of this version of Santa Claus?
Oh, I love this version of Santa Claus. This was great.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, Santa Claus was just a flawed human being, like we all are. You know what I mean? Like he was tired of doing his day job, which he did every day. Every day up until Christmas time. It wasn't, they didn't even get into that aspect. It just was like, oh, that time before Christmas. But Santa Claus was the figurehead of Christmas. So what he had to do, we didn't see all of it. We just got a little bit of complaining outside of driving the sled. But it was like doing a task or doing a job that a lot of people are like, I hate doing this job. I just get up and go because this is the role that fulfills, as you mentioned earlier, what you and Mr. Rafan were talking about, was as far as love versus money, or feeling the need to pay bills, a mortgage, whatever the case may be. And one of the key things I liked about Santa Claus was when he had that conversation with a woman who I won't mention. I won't go into too much spoilers with that, but that interaction was, what he said was very key. He was like, no one ever, out of the whole time I've been doing this for however many years, no one's ever looked at me like that. And there's a sense of admiration and gratitude. Admiration and gratitude. But he took it. He took it to the next level. Yeah, he took it to the next level.
Oh, he did.
He never received that, at least from what he says. And you don't know the history between him and Mrs. Claus, so you don't know. But the way that this novel was written, I definitely think that they would have put Mrs. Claus in a overbearing, stereotypical wife role.
Right.
Would have continued it. So you were really just getting the insight from Santa Claus. But I love how Santa Claus was written. It was like,
I understand. It was one-sided, man. It was like, sure,
but it was about Santa Claus. Santa Claus Private Eye.
I know, but I get that. But like at the same time, it's a package deal. You get what I'm saying? Like every other, like Mr. Refine was saying, man. Every other movie, they always have him as a joint package. Like she's there, she's in his corner, she supports him, she pushes him. And this one, she was like,
but I love it. It was nitty gritty and dirty. I love this novel. I don't, what I mean? I'm just gonna keep it. It was real quick.
Man, they could have. And I don't know. I was a little annoyed, but I'm not gonna lie. But maybe that's just the woman in me that didn't appreciate.
Again, you didn't like the stereotypical viewpoint of how.
I was like, I can't do that.
A woman was, at least his wife was shown. So I completely got it. So I just think that I like how Santa Claus was written. I mean, even with the other novel we're gonna be looking at next week, I was just like, yeah, let's get something.
I feel like this one was definitely different. Like we were saying, it gave a different perspective to him. There was more to him than just being a jolly white guy who delivers gifts. And I think that was something that I think just made him a little bit more, right? It made him more personable. Like you said, it speaks more to how we are as humans and where we can identify with them. Now, this one I do think I want to get your opinion on. Are love and money the only motivators? So I'm curious. What would
I was watching that. I was trying to respond on my way here, but to Mr. Refine's point and to your point, I think both of you are right that it's a multitude of things for this love and money aspect. But when as you two were talking, I was thinking about it. I was like, dang, Mr. Refine was talking about responsibility, and I was like, yeah, responsibility is something that society is like, hey, you do this, whatever your actions are, you should be accountable for those actions. But in that responsibility, the taking care of, and it may not just be monetarily, but at the end of the day, roof over the head, clothes on your back, food, all of that is monetary in this system. You're not out on the farmland. You're not making clothes anymore. You're not farming anymore. So a lot of this, and I mentioned in the comments, capitalism. Capitalism has taken that away into your point set about it being love and money. Because even as growing up, yeah, you'll find someone who you choose to spend either your life with or whatever period of time, have children with. They'll look at you as a person. Don't get me wrong, but as more responsibilities or more things that are either needed or wanted come into play in this society, is tied into dollars and cents. You love me. Why can't we go on trips?
Thank
Mhm.
you.
Mhm.
Ooh, and that's what we
Mhm.
were getting at earlier, man. Like I said, social media will have you thinking like the one guy, I don't know if you guys saw this, this is like a long time ago. The guy had proposed to his woman. He had 5 different rings.
Hmm.
Now, to me, there's this big debate. Some people were like, "Oh, this is great." Others felt it was over the top. And of course, some people were like, "But did he actually know what type of ring she wanted?" And people were like, "Well, maybe she didn't know what type of ring she wanted." But I was just thinking, like, the fact is, dude went out and spent money on 5 rings,
Right.
5,
But
and
to
it
him,
just,
but it's all
you know,
about what I think there's needs and wants that a need and a want is different for every person. I think
ooh,
as you get to a level of comfort or something that you're used to or something that becomes a part of your lifestyle, then that 5 rings could have been a selection. Yeah, she likes 2 of these 3, but I'm gonna give her 5 options. You know what I mean? And for everybody else, that's crazy. But to him, it was
I
what it
know it
was.
made sense. Like for them, and I think that's the thing. Like you said, it depends on the situation. Like, what is the dynamics in the relationship? Right? Like what are you able to do those type of things? Are you able to go a little bit over the top to prove or to at least kind of elevate your commitment, your love, your whatever you want to call it towards your partner. But
Hmm.
I'm also thinking too, like, man, you could use it to go do some other stuff. But that's just me again. But you have to remember, it's your little
That's
frame of
right.
reference,
The window.
not
Mhm.
theirs.
But
Can't be putting it
even
on everybody else.
Yeah, but even to
Yeah.
Mr. Refine's point, though, even though he kept saying love and money, it still was more. It still was a responsibility. It still tied into love, but it was also this emotion of I have to be responsible
Yeah.
for this situation,
Yep.
and it wasn't. I mean, let's be honest. The way this book was written, if he didn't, we would have suspected that in the novel. We would
Yep.
have been like, yeah, that's not that's going along the line. And even the person saying that you don't have to do this and been saying that for a very long time. Um,
He
it
chose
just
to. He still chose to step up.
exactly, and that's what I mean. That's what ties into Mr. Refine's point is that you do have. I think the way that society is structured now, like the ways of knowing. Shout out to Dr. Carr. Um,
Oh, there
is
I was wondering because he
you
could
know how
drop
to
him in
throw it in
there.
there. Come on, man. Class 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's going down
Here we go. We
tomorrow.
gotta get him on the show.
We definitely, hopefully, we can. I'm gonna definitely reach
Oh,
out.
I would love to have him on here.
Twitter fingers going, but no, I definitely think that it's always more to it. But to your point, the way that this society is set up, it's like if you don't, there's no bartering anymore. We're not. I mean, for people to really out there and farm and live off the land, you can. You just have to get out of the mindset of what certain things that you think that you need. But again,
Yes.
all this technology, even what we're on right now, like if you think you're gonna be off grid, but you're gonna have to get your own generator. You're gonna have to get your own power source, and
Exactly.
that's not coming from no trade, uh, except for that currency. So that's all
Yeah.
I got to say.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Exactly. So with that, what are other themes? What other themes did you notice in the comic? So,
Oh,
I think we touched on them a little bit, right? Like we touched on the
accountability.
whole idea.
Oh,
Huh?
this is,
Oh,
accountability.
go ahead. Go ahead. I'm gonna let you go because you already started
Yeah,
off
I'm
on
just rapid
this.
fire. Accountability. Like the novel was like all these decisions you make is like, even though Santa kept saying love and money, really it was like you have a choice. So accountability. You made these decisions, and a lot of people didn't feel bad about them. Let's just keep it 100 in this novel, and that's why I think a lot of people like those detective movies where there's really, even though there's an antagonist and a protagonist, really the antagonist is really not an antagonist, because for the detective movies that fall in line with this novel, majority of the times the antagonist that comes into the office of the detective, majority of the times they don't necessarily see jail time, they don't see death. It just depends on how the person wants to write that story. Make it more dramatic, they will. But I think overall, it's like you made those choices and decisions, and a lot of people throughout the whole novel, the very small amount of people we saw, it was like that's the choice they wanted to make. So like, and then are you going to hold yourself accountable? And even the ones who were held accountable by Santa Claus and his detective aspect, it was like, you know, we don't even know if like when they got caught, did the person who got caught, was that really shame on them, or was it the person who found out about it, who was hurt? Did they have more of that accountability for their own emotions and trying to figure it out? It just was like, it really was good on that aspect to me, just like accountability. And do you want to accept what you did, and you got to deal with the consequences. And a lot of them didn't care because they kept doing it. They knew somebody was looking for something. And you know, that's what
that was I didn't notice. What about you, Mr. Refine? What you got?
I agree with what D was saying as far as accountability, but I also want to add in the fact that two of them were pretty much looking for love and acceptance. Mr. Claus was, and also Mrs. Barton. And you noticed that a lot through the things they did, specifically Mr. Claus, Santa, or Nick Santana, whatever he wants to be called.
I know,
You know what I'm saying?
Santana. I was like, really?
Yeah, Nick Santana. But you noticed that they were definitely looking for love. So that's the theme that I noticed in there: looking for love, but also the accountability as well.
Ooh, I like that, because I was also thinking along the lines of being seen, like really being seen. That was something that I think came across a couple of times. Like actually someone actually seeing you for who you are and not for the persona that you're putting out there. I think the other thing too was just the fact that, hey, when you do dirt, it comes back around and it bites you hard. I mean, I think the funniest thing was Mrs. Barton's lover, how he, met his demise, and I was sitting there cracking up when they talked about the fact that his car didn't have any airbags. I probably laughed at that a little bit too hard, way harder than I should have, to be completely honest with you. And then the fact that they showed how it looked, I was sitting there cracking up. And I know that's bad. I'm sorry, but I just couldn't help it. But I just think that whole idea, like, you can't escape it. We talked about this last time with Tokyo Godfathers. You can't escape your past. Your past is going to come back, especially if you're doing dirt. But so I think that was something that I thought really came out with this a little bit. I mean, a lot of people didn't care, like you said, D, but I still feel like it just came back to bite them.
And even with the character you're talking about, Miss Barton, like, was it really karma? Because again, it was literally setting up so certain things could transpire in the way that Mrs. Barton needed it to, for the reason that Mrs. Barton needed it for. So
I mean, but that's the thing. Karma will set it up, like karma will
that's
set
what I'm saying.
you up.
The only reason that this is even a novel a story is because of what Mrs. Barton was after. Outside of that, if Mrs. Barton could get more, because it's not like Mrs. Barton didn't get something, is that Mrs. Barton wanted it all. And I think it's more so talking about greed too, because could have walked away.
I mean, you talking about some money.
Been good.
You know what I'm saying? You know how many times you've heard the stories of people getting taken out by their lovers or kids because you got money, life insurance and stuff like that, or people pretending to die to get the money? Like that's the thing that gets me. I mean, that greed will push you to do some crazy stuff. Now, here's the thing. I will ask this question. It wasn't on here, but it made me think about it, because in that scene, when she said to him, "Do you want me to cut you a check?" If you were Nick Santana in that moment, he made the comment, "I should have cashed that check," would you have taken up her offer and then still turned her in, or
nah?
Would
you... I got integrity. I would have snatched her ass up, just based upon I had already did the work. If they just based upon me already doing the work. Now, if I just meeting her for the first time, then yeah, I would have took that check. But he put in the work already. Yeah, I'd have took that check. But he put in the work already, and having integrity, that says a lot about you. His integrity means a lot. He had morals and values, so he did the right thing. But if you were just meeting her just off the rip, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna cut your check. Don't speak on X, Y, Z." Yeah, I might stay quiet for a little bit, because that don't involve me. You talking about two white people that got money. That doesn't involve me.
But you were willing to cash in the lottery ticket.
I'm cashing both checks. I'm just
lottery
You were
ticket.
willing to
You
cash
talking
the
about
lottery
poor
ticket of
people?
the dead guy from the last one we talked about.
Yeah.
Where's
You
your
talking about
integrity?
poor
then?
people though? Poor people. These were destitute people who needed this paper. This woman then did some dirt. Hey, send her ass to jail.
I would have got the check, and I would have turned me.
I'm cashing both checks. I'm just keeping $100. Because again, the integrity. Again, everybody has a line. Don't get me wrong. What line will not cross? But at the end of the day, it was like you already had a feeling about it. Reality was there, and then you look at it's like who's it's like calling the kettle black. Like what line are you drawing? Everybody has a line, so I'm not knocking it. It was fine. I respect it. I just would have cashed both of them checks and kept it moving, and because the end goal was for the other situation. You know what I mean? I keep calling it situation because I'm not trying to get spoiled.
We didn't do any spoilers.
Because that responsibility was more important from my perspective.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you know what? Cash it in. Yeah. You got L's to feed. You got L's to feed, okay?
You didn't care about them damn L's.
Hey, them L's bring Christmas, damn it. You should care about them damn L's. But I will say this. I mean, this here, I think this is a fantastic one. I will say, if you guys have not read it, read it. Check it out. I think it was really, really good. It's a quick read. Like I said, it's only 76 pages. It doesn't take that long to get through. There's not a lot of words to it, but there's a good storyline behind it. And like I said, you really enjoyed a lot of the characters. But next week, we are taking a dark turn. Okay, we are going to go, I know it's Christmas, but I'm like, I had to go the route of going with a creature that is known to come back. And we talked a lot about your past coming up, you doing dirt, accountability, responsibility, and Krampus, which we're going to be talking about next week, really touches on that. And I think it's going to be a great movie. It's rated R, which I think is a really great way to kind of tie that in. So, they're not going to do like cutscenes away. Like, they show some pretty cool stuff. So if you haven't watched it, make sure you watch it before next week. Definitely tune in to see what we're going to be talking about, I think. And this is going to be the week before Christmas. Okay, so a lot of us are probably, some of us, I should say, will be celebrating the fact that is going to be the last day of work that we have to do for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
I don't know nothing about that. I don't know what you're talking about. So
Thank you.
That's that consulting. That's that consulting big business.
That is corporate life. That's what I want to say is corporate life.
But that adds other stress values to your life that me and D may not necessarily have to deal with.
True. Nope. This is today. There are different stresses, We all got our issues, like I may be getting off, but then there's other things, I may have the rest of the year off.
I'll put it to you this way. I have an opportunity to do something to move up in the corporate ladder, to say so, to get a lot of money, but I said, nah, I'll pass because my peace of mind is more important, because I'd be making a lot of money if I made this move.
That money didn't make a move.
I need this to be right if I'm gonna be doing stuff, because if I'm coming home and I'm be pissed off or mad about, that's not worth it. That's just me. You gotta do what you gotta do.
Hey, I'm so excited for
check. You know what I'm saying? Cut this check, because we living in this social structure involved society. Cut that check, man. And I'm not even. I mean, the decompression. Like, I'm just I'm used to it. But anyways, I'm not gonna keep too long because it's about to hit that hour mark. So I know we're about to hit that hour because
we getting that out. We hitting that out. So I'm gonna say thank you guys for watching. Make sure you guys subscribe, hit the notification bell, follow us. Let us know what you're thinking, what you like, what you dislike. Make sure you follow us on all media that we're on. We're on Facebook, Twitch, and Instagram. So Twitter. I hope you guys
we everywhere.
We everywhere. So I hope you guys have a great night and a great weekend, and we will see you guys next week.
Hey.
Yes. Cheers, y'all. Cheers.